One quick announcement before I announce our last session of the summit, which can't believe we're actually already here. For everybody that's been here for the last 2 days or is watching right now, if you can tomorrow, there'll be a survey sent out. One of the things we want to do here at MK 2025 is make sure every summit in future years is better. So any feedback you have, it's a short survey to answer, so please make sure you do that tomorrow so we can answer the things you're looking for us to do in that way. So, right, okay. So again, like I said a little bit earlier, this is our last session coming up, and I think we picked a really good one to end on. I know Dan, who's going to come up here in a second, has some interesting ways to make sure we're all up and ready for it. So Dan, the floor is yours and no pressure.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is one of those situations where it's like one of these pinch yourself moments. An ordinary Indian here in Macedonia, connecting organizations, sharing knowledge. This is amazing. I'm so glad to be here. I want to know how you guys are feeling. So, give me one single clap if you're happy that you're alive. Just one. Simple ask. Give me 2 claps if you believe that the future is better than the past. Not bad. This is a tough one. Give me 3 claps if you think and you believe that you are part of that better future for Macedonia. Finally, I want you to give me 126 claps exactly if you are grateful to Nikisa, the board of directors, to all the volunteers, the ambassadors, the translators, the logistics teams, and everybody who's made this possible for us today. That's good, that's good. I counted 126 really quickly. It's something that Indians are trained at birth to do numbers fast. So, the story of David versus Goliath. Who knows this story? David versus Goliath. Okay, camera guys, follow me. Let's go. David versus Goliath. Who can tell me the story of David versus Goliath? Some people raise their hands, and as soon as I showed up, they're like, hands down. Please, come stand up real quick.
I don't have to stand up.
That's true. You're tall. David versus Goliath. Who was David? Who was Goliath in the Bible?
Goliath was a titan, and David was a small guy who beaten up the titan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly it. And yeah, you can clap for her. That's right. In the story of David versus Goliath, it is small versus big. It is young versus old. It is new versus existing. I think sometimes the conversation on startups and industry leaders is made like David versus Goliath. But I wonder, how would the story be different if it was David and Goliath? What if they worked on their competitive advantages, collaborated, put aside their differences? How would history have been written differently? We're going to talk about innovation, and I know it was somewhat proposed as startups versus corporates, but I think you're going to see from amazing panelists that we believe that collaboration and working together is the future. So with that, can you make some noise and welcome our final panelists for the day? Come on. Okay. We have one empty seat in the middle. If somebody just wants to join the panel, you're what? No, don't do that. But Nicola, if you're in the house, that seat is yours. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. You know this iPad is the last time that we're using this. Please give your questions twice in today's 57 minutes and 26 seconds that I have left before the president comes up. We are going to take your questions, so please be interactive. As a way of introduction, I obviously stalked you on LinkedIn, read your blogs, your websites, what your wives, husbands, and loved ones said about you privately. I've done my research.
We noticed.
You noticed. But probably the most interesting is a Twitter bios. So I don't know if you have Twitter before it syncs, but what would be your Twitter bio? I don't know how many characters are allowed. Give us the short version of who you are. We'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I would say corporate activist, connecting corporate needs with community needs and looking forward to talk about it.
Yes, great job. Thank you for being here. Visar.
Thank you for having me, and pleasure to share this panel with you. I would say an entrepreneur, but mostly a social enterprise one.
Very good. Short and sweet. And finally,
Hi everyone, my name is Georgia and I'm the founder of Sign Avatar. It's a software that translates speech into sign language using AI to help deaf communities.
excellent. We're now going to go to a quick, yes, let's give it up for our panelists. Rapid fire questions, one word answers only, as fast as you can. Coffee or tea? Neither.
I'll pick tea.
Tea.
Coffee.
When is the most productive time of the day, morning or night?
Night.
Nights.
Night.
What is going to be the most disruptive technology of the future?
I don't know. Let's see.
Let's see. Open-minded to anything?
AI in space.
All right.
AI, definitely.
Excellent. Of all the stakeholders in an entrepreneurial ecosystem, universities, government, talent, funding, all of that, who's the most important?
Government.
Businesses.
I'm a startup guy, so startups.
Startups. Excellent. Final question. If Mike were to personally hand you $1 billion to do whatever you wanted to do to completely transform this ecosystem, and you can issue that $1 billion as you wish to whoever, what would be the formula for success? Who would you give how much to? Whoever wants to answer that first.
Okay, can I start?
Yes, please.
Sure. So I will give a third to the government to help with some programs or whatever. And I give the rest to startups because I believe they're the future of innovation.
So governments and startups.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think I would do a split. I would save all of it for myself, and I would set up a angel investors club. Most probably invite all the brightest entrepreneurs around and join me to that venture, and another half definitely to a different kind of banking system. So a type of financial institution that would not have risk analysis of this type that we have, but rather than have entrepreneurs, again, at the bank deciding on the project financing.
All right. Very good. I like some of those entrants into the formula.
70% startups,
Okay.
10% government, 10% NGOs,
Okay.
and 10% corporate.
Very cool. Thank you so much for playing along for this game. Now we will do a traditional panel conversation on an important conversation on when it comes to models of innovation. Obviously, corporates, industry leaders are changing so quickly in how they deal with innovation. And then we have startups that, just based on digitization and everything else, go from entering the market to completely taking over the market in ever-shortening amounts of time. It's an incredible time to be alive. It's an incredible time to see things changing. What are some of the models that you personally endorse, that excite you, that you have seen, maybe things you have initiated or pioneered, or things that you appreciate in others, that you go, this is the model, this is the way to do things, this is how innovation happens?
Shall I start again?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, sure. Well, I believe that there are models where startups collaborate with the, let's say, corporate, and I believe, like you said in the beginning, David and Goliath should work together because startups are agile. They can do things very quickly. If you have a small team like we do, you can do a lot of stuff in a short, like, there's no meetings, there's no, like, you can do anything that you want really quickly. And sometimes you just need some support to, let's say, enter the market, meet the right people, or basically have some structure that you don't have because you're so small. So I believe that corporate and startups should work together. Startups should be the ones bringing the innovation, and corporate should be the one bringing the structure.
All right.
Absolutely agree on that, but I would say that this is a chicken and egg kind of question, and because innovation, even today, it's coming either from the startups, but also from the corporate itself. So a mixed model or a mixed model between the two is definitely something that we are seeing more and more these days, and I think that's a winning scenario, because startups do have good ideas, but for some good ideas you need also resources and ways to finance, but also people in order to develop it to a working innovation model. So there has to be a conjunction between both in order to have more innovation coming, I would say.
I disagree a little bit with
I'm
you.
so glad. Please disagree. Yes.
You said that companies are changing fast, but I don't think so. I think they're just digesting that they need to change fast. Coming from the company, from the big system, I can say that. On the other hand, startups do need resources, many procedures, many processes that already are in the companies, but I do believe that companies have huge task in front of themselves, and this is change of the culture. This growth mindset, innovation mindset is something that you need to introduce in the big corporate systems. And for everybody coming from corporations, you can know that it's pretty hard to change this mindset and take risks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Really quick, yes? He hasn't done anything yet. Why are we clapping? He hasn't done anything yet. After this, you can get the clap. Ready? Everyone gave a tweet-sized intro of who they were. So, in as short characters as you can, introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nikola Velkovsky, the co-founder and CEO of Howitzer, and we are a company that builds marketing tools for startups and agencies. Thank
Super.
you.
Now you can clap. He did something. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to push it a little bit harder because the two of you agreed they should work together, and you say, well, corporates are just kind of talking about it. They're not really doing it. They know they should change, but they're not actually changing. Let's get a bit more specific. I work with Stellantis, one of the larger conglomerates of mobility companies. They're no more car companies, now mobility companies. And I work with them on an entrepreneurship program. They believe that the best way to innovate is to activate entrepreneurial skill set from their own staff, right? So we do multiple incubators and accelerators throughout the year, turning staff who already know customers, who already know the business, who already know the process, who already know the market, who have great industry insights, to be innovative and to speak up. And then I work, on the other hand, with Porsche, and their model is to go to tech events, go to startup events, find the movers and shakers, find the new innovation, and buy them, or do some joint ventures or some acquisitions. So these are two models happening simultaneously by two companies in the same industry. What would be your instinct? Can everyone be an entrepreneur? Should innovation be happening within? Is it something that you buy into? Let the startups do startup stuff. Let the corporates do corporate stuff. Let the corporates buy where they cannot do. What are your thoughts on that? Again, open.
Okay, I will start. I will start from my personal example. I'm pretty sure I'm not entrepreneur, and I will never be. And I think that I should never even try to be entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So I will definitely go with the Porsche method in this moment.
All right. So where you can do, so for example, industry leader being good on infrastructure, access to markets, access.
Recognizing a good idea, recognizing some innovative approach that you can implement in your own system.
Okay, I like that. Agreed. What do you guys think?
Can I do next?
Yeah.
Well, I believe definitely that an entrepreneur is something you like either are or aren't. I think that's something. And I also think that ideas as themselves are not like super worth. Like the worth is in the execution itself. Like, for example, people have been asking me why have I been like speaking of what we do. Shouldn't I keep it a secret? Well, no, you shouldn't keep it a secret. The best thing that you can do with the idea is iterate it with, like you said, corporate or somebody who has more experience. I'm very young. I think I'm the youngest panelist here, and from what I like. Value from these conferences and tech is the experience of other like older people with more experience who transfer some ideas or like be the devil's advocate for me. So that's my like take on this.
All right.
Well, between the two models, I think entrepreneurs are a special breed. You ain't gonna build an entrepreneur by paying him a salary. Absolutely not. So I would definitely think that the success to the models that you mentioned is the second one, that companies should search for entrepreneurs and outside of their own organization rather than try to build them within. And the corporates and inside the corporate structures, you always have good ideas coming up, and there are always processes in order how to foster that, and as well try to build upon those good ideas that are coming from the employees under the corporate structure. But in order for the new ideas and new ideas that come from outside, I would say that these are the ones that make bigger difference rather than those that are from inside companies. This is why we, even as startups, myself, I've been one for quite some time with many businesses that I've started. We always have also mentors, and we rely on other people in order to start with. And these are not within our organization, but these are outsiders which are willing to help. And I would definitely use the opportunity to thank Vasko Kronevski, who used to be 20 years ago one of my mentors as well. So thank you, Vasko.
My opinion on this thing is that, well, the corporations started as startups, started as entrepreneurs who had ideas, who made disruption on the current market. But as the company scales and as the teams grow, the founder starts to focus more on, building the company, not focusing on innovation, on taking risk, on moving really fast. And the thing is that as the time goes by, as the companies grow bigger and bigger, the innovation segment is slightly, not slightly, but massively reduced compared to the beginnings when the companies were startups. So yeah, I agree with the previous comment that the bigger companies like Porsche, for example, should not invest in inside innovation, but should look for other startups that they can support and can move the market and can move through the market. So yeah, that's my take on this question.
So before I move it to the audience, and I'm seeing the questions coming in, thank you so much for being so engaged with this. Educate me, please. This is my first time in Macedonia. It's my first time, I've been at a high school, I've been to 2 universities, meeting a couple companies, I'm learning. What's broken here? So when it comes to the corporate startup conversation, besides everything, I heard that, because I think we're in agreement that entrepreneurs should be entrepreneurs, corporates should be corporates, there's value to both, there's purpose to both. Innovation is going to happen when both learn to work together. So why is that not happening? So we're saying it, but what in that conversation is not happening right now? Please tell me.
May I go first? Okay, so this is a topic I've been discussing lately with my colleagues and the Macedonian startup ecosystem. The thing is that, for example, Macedonia is a lot behind the other countries in terms of innovation and startup ecosystem maturity. And the thing is because one aspect is probably the mindset, the CEE or SEE mindset, the Balkans mindset, where we are built as engineers. Here, for example, when it comes to startups and companies, we are really good from the technical aspect. But when it comes to marketing, sales, or entrepreneurship in general, we are not that mature as the other companies. For example, let's say Budapest or even Belgrade as one of moving startup ecosystems. The thing is that, for example, in Macedonia, most of the I'll speak from the IT segment. Most of the companies are in the outsourcing part, and we are cheap labor that can code really good solutions, similar to in the States or the Western Europe. So the thing is that this middle ground, I would say Macedonia, has been used as a cheap labor for outsourced development, and that's probably why we lack that type of knowledge we need. For example, when a year and a half ago, when we raised our pre-seed investment, I wrote an ad for a growth hacker, and the question was, what's growth hacking? What's growth hacker? Like in 2020, first people weren't familiar with job positions that exist on the market. So the thing is, when you're Western on the world cards, you get much more exposure to talent that's not familiar in these type of places, because it's the globalization hit before, and sadly that's the situation here. We are the ones who need to create this startup ecosystem and create these job positions that don't exist here. That's my take on this thing.
Thanks for that insight. Culture is a very important one, and I love that you started with that.
If I can add to this,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Serbia, so I'll just speak a little bit about our ecosystem over there. So the ecosystem in the past maybe 2 years, since I've been around, it has grown a lot, but the system is still kind of broken because you don't have access to, let's say, VC money and stuff like that. There are some, but not as many opportunities as, for example, if we lived in Silicon Valley or something like that in the US. And the second thing is there are some collaborations between corporate and startups, but it should be done in a systematic way, so to say. Some companies support startups, but there's not a lot of them, really. But the ecosystem is great, and you have access to a lot of, let's say, other CEOs, other companies that share like similar experiences, and you learn a little bit from everyone, and that's how you grow. So definitely I'd put if like Nicola said, this is not like, if there's no ecosystem here, I'd put an emphasis on having the startup ecosystem, because it helped us to learn a lot, and I think it helps every founder.
Other thoughts on what needs fixing?
Mindset.
Okay.
Just mindset, and these beautiful examples of the people that succeeded. We need to promote them and speak about them more often to really showcase them as a good examples, because we have been growing up in some negative atmosphere that we cannot do it. So I think we need those guys to show us that we can do it.
I love that. Anything to add there?
It is good that there are things to be fixed, because otherwise there will be no place for us to innovate something and try to market it and do business out of it. So when it comes to fixing, we all live here in this region. There is always something to be done, and this can be translated to opportunities. So for those who have the entrepreneurial mindset, of course, they are seen as opportunities. Nevertheless, it is tough to fix things in this region, and it's tough as well to endure during the fixing process. So those who stand here, all of them, and who are doing business and trying to evolve, also the startups, they have many more pains than the other people in the developed world have. So I really share all of them that do find the force in order to stay and fight for the change in their countries and where they contribute.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I like the point about having role models as well. When I see what happens in other ecosystems on the West, you ask a teenager, you ask someone who's an aspiring entrepreneur, who do you look up to? They have someone that's probably from the same country, maybe even from the same state, that they would say, yeah, I want to be like them. My guess is if I ask people here or where I'm from in India, they probably are going to point to the same people out in Silicon Valley as their role models. And so, you know, who are the people local that they can say, oh yeah, this guy from my neighborhood did it, and if he can do it, I can do it. This girl who sat in my class has made it. If she can make it, I can make it. I think we need more of those kind of role models too, among other things that are happening. I promised questions from, dropped a mic. I promised questions from the audience, so here are the questions coming in, unfiltered. Why was Nicola late? We'll go to that one later. We'll start with the other question. I told you unfiltered.
I couldn't find parking.
Okay, there we go. Parking problems. A question to all. Apart from classic startups, is it possible for corporations to have startups as their R&D departments and then to launch them as companies?
I believe so, yeah. But it's kind of a tricky situation because you need to have someone who has that mindset and then do a kind of a build around him. You need to, as a leader, as a, I don't want to say CEO, but as someone who's higher up the chain, you need to recognize a certain persona and say, okay, this is the guy, this is the girl, or whatever, and he or she can do it. I'm going to build a team around her. There's this idea, and there's, like I've said, if you do it from within, you have the structure, you probably have some money, way more than like us. But yeah, it's possible, but I wouldn't count on it.
Are you referring to things like a chief innovation officer or an entrepreneur in residence? Because a lot of companies have such people there, and then they fund them and say, make a department, start an accelerator, start an incubator, have a venture capital fund. Is that what you're referring to, or something different?
Like that, yeah. Something
Okay.
like that.
Other thoughts?
I don't think it can be forced. I think it's
Yeah.
much smarter for the companies to just acquire startups or, you know, invest in them so they can work on something. But yeah, forcing innovation within a company or forced accelerators, I think are the worst thing in the universe. But
I think we already addressed previously a little bit about this, but myself, we have tried it in one of the companies, and it was in the IT sector, and we call it the spin-offs. So what we did is actually we tried to spin off all the departments and some divisions into new companies. And out of one company, we created about 5 of them. And eventually, after a period of about almost 10 years, we realized that it was not a success. So now it's a kind of a mix in terms of legal structure and between of how we are operating. So for us, it was a no-go.
Got it.
It's a tricky thing, really, because if you're buying a startup, eventually you will change the mindset of the team working in this startup. So I honestly believe in investing in startups and investing in ideas. And I fully agree that you cannot force this entrepreneurial or inventor's mindset within your company. It's healthy to have R&Ds. It's really healthy because you have lots of data that you can play around and focus your products or services on that. I think you should always have it. But entrepreneurial mindset and innovators to be forced and somehow develop within the company, very rarely. It happened, but very, very rarely.
All right. Thank you for feedback. We've got a couple more questions, so if you have an answer to it, feel free to. Otherwise, we just keep going on it. If professional athletes have coaches, why can't startups have the same? And they're differentiating, because I think you mentioned about mentors. They said, if so, are these coaches more involved than mentors? And how invested should they be?
Tough question. But I think the mentors are super important. It's actually one of the reasons that we actually made anything. But it's because we're a young team, but we still needed some, business experience. That's where mentors come in. I'm gonna ask the audience. There's a lot of successful people here. Probably, is anyone here a mentor to some startup or something? Thanks. I see a couple of hands. Yeah, but I think that's super important for if you're an early stage startup. But something like a coach, if somebody takes over some responsibilities, then he's more of a role in the company. So I would like limit it to a mentor, if that makes any sense.
Any other thoughts?
Difficult to differentiate for me. In any case, a mentor or a coach, is it one being paid and the other one not, or what's the difference?
That's my difference. When I get paid, it's called a coach. Otherwise, it's just mentoring.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, so it is, as I said, it is important, and I believe coaching or mentoring, it is necessary in order to ease the mistakes and pains throughout the journey of a startup.
If I can add my 2 cents, even though I made a joke about that, my difference is a coach is getting you to a goal, whereas a mentor is giving you answers, thoughts, reflections based on the question you ask them. A coach's job is to ask you questions to get the best out of you. That's my personal difference on it, and they do play different roles. I think the answer is when you are a founder, you need all of it. I had a board of directors for my company, I had mentors, I had coaches, I had a personal advisory group, just people who helped Dan be the best Dan possible, so I could keep doing what I was doing. So I think there's a role for coaches, mentors, and all the above in there. The next question that came in, we're going to get to, because it has to do around inclusion and different initiatives that need to be piloted in order to make the ecosystem stronger and more vibrant. But here's another question that came in about imposter syndrome. So, actually, no. What they wrote was how to avoid founder syndrome in a startup. I wonder what is founder syndrome? Do they mean imposter syndrome? No? Okay, it comes from Anonymous. So maybe you can ask that question again, whoever you are, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, as to what that is. How can startups compete with industry leaders in terms of innovation and growth? So in our classic story of David versus Goliath, what does David have that Goliath doesn't? If Goliath is the company. Speed?
Yep.
Okay, that's how you
Flexibility,
compete.
risk-taking,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial mindset. For example, take OpenAI versus Google. OpenAI created ChatGPT, which is far superior to Google's transformer, BART. And it's coming from a startup going versus this huge industry leader. For example, even Jeff Bezos said, like, Google is like a mountain. You can do whatever you want, but you cannot move it. But it comes to, you know, the end of 2022, and there is a startup funded by Microsoft, Elon Musk, and so on and so on. Just a bunch of guys who create something that's really good. On the other hand, let's say even OpenAI, if it's funded by these huge giants, there is another startup called Midjourney. These guys are, you know, started as a team of 12 people who did transformer for generating AI images, and they're far more superior to anything on the market. So it comes to, like, you know, this speed of execution, this probably risk-taking and open-mindedness, you know, faster propagating decisions and pivoting and moving the trajectory is probably what separates, I mean, like, it's probably what creates the next generations of, you know, FANG type of companies. That's my 2 cents on this.
It was interesting about the company that you mentioned, to see their advisory group. It is true that there are 12, but their advisory group was quite big one, and they were industry leaders as well listed on that company. So interesting aspects of how would you define it as really a small startup when you have such a big names listed there?
They came even before ChatGPT.
Yeah, I agree.
I found them around October when they were hiring and they were writing this white paper and manifest and stuff like that. I didn't find any big names in the advisory, but probably...
Last time I checked, it was a
something like
big
that.
list and a very interesting one to see.
All right. So I want to I want to touch on something that you actually said, Ivana, at the very beginning about maybe digestion. Was that the word you used? Like big companies just talk about
Yes.
change?
Yes.
One of the big differences, I think, between David and Goliath is that the startup needs to survive. But big companies assume they will continue surviving. And that mindset is a big, big difference. And so I think when you have a young, hungry team, I don't mean young in age, but young to market, hungry team that have to make it work, otherwise they're extinct, versus what would be a dinosaur, assuming I'm the biggest thing on
In
this
comfort
landscape,
zone.
I'm gonna live forever, that drive is very different. And I think that's a strength as well. Let's talk a little bit about future models for innovation. All right, so we talked a little bit about what needs to happen, but let's talk about what are things that you are seeing, what are things that you're piloting. Just so everybody knows, we've got two wonderful gentlemen who are very much in the startup side of things, and then we've got two wonderful people who have worked in big companies and are also on the startup side of things. And so they understand both sides to it, and they play that line as well. So from your perspectives, from things that you have seen, that you've experienced, things that you're doing currently, what are initiatives, projects, collaborations that you want to celebrate and identify?
Okay, I will start just because I was mentioning role models, because these three gentlemen are really role models for future innovators. But next time, I would really like to see one lady here, because I'm not on the side of innovators, I'm on the side of the companies. So this is the extremely important topic that we need to speak each and every day in Balkans, because statistics are showing, and I hope you will support me, that there are not so many female innovators or entrepreneurs. Potential is there. We have seen after Corona and everything what happened that we have seen acceleration of the entrepreneurship here. But female entrepreneurs and innovators, they will need our support, definitely. I have seen here today and yesterday phenomenal ladies, including Nikita, who organized this whole event. So she should be also a huge role model for the future female leaders as well. So we as a company, we are trying to share project She's Next, a very important one. We have done it in Serbia. This is why I want to mention it, because I think there is a potential to spread this project around our region as well. This program is mainly focused on female entrepreneurs. It's initiated by 12 phenomenal female entrepreneurs in Serbia who already have done and went through the whole path of pain and struggle and challenges. And these 12 ladies are making direction of this project. We are giving education, some skills to the ladies, also some kind of a support within each other, because we have created network for 5,000 ladies currently that we are communicating on everyday basis about their struggles and their challenges as well. This year we will also give them financial grants to support them. Also, we will use our international skills and knowledge to support them in initiating online shops as well, and connect them with regional platforms so they can sell products outside of our region as well. Because I will just say three numbers that are very sad for me. It is that 70% of the startups are founded and created and managed by male. 30% of all entrepreneurs and small businesses are led by females. And the most of these small entrepreneurs have just one employee, and this is this one lady. So please, if you can, and I know you can, I am seeing all of your bright minds, your leaders of this region, please do support female entrepreneurs and innovators, and I also count on you three as well to support us and somehow spotlight on the ladies who are trying to make a change in this area.
I don't want to come across as, you can clap for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't want to come across as rude. I want to add to that and say it's not supporting female entrepreneurs as a charity case, because the data also shows that female CEOs outperform male CEOs. The data also shows that diversity makes a company better. So the next time you're sitting in a boardroom and you see everyone else looking like you, demographic-wise, you're in trouble. It's only a matter of time, but you're in trouble. All right, so there are those data too. I mean, I sympathize that the data on female entrepreneurs, that size is smaller, but I also think it's a huge missed opportunity for everybody else. And it's not just about balancing the equation, but seeing the value that comes from that. So I think a lot has to happen in that space globally, but I understand here. And of course, with that comes identifying what are the obstacles. You know, why do some rise, these 12 that made it, as you said, maybe fought through it to establish? Why do they rise and why do the others not? Please?
Main challenge is support of the environment.
Okay.
This is the main response that we have received from these entrepreneurs, that environment, their circle of friends and families are doubting them and they're not supporting them in their own ideas.
All right.
So we need to change mindset
Got to change
all
the
over
mindset.
again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mindsets and cultures evolve, so of course. What are some other ideas, initiatives, thoughts that you see that will help drive innovation in this region?
Add on what you just said, like on diversity and inclusion. I am kind of biased, not gonna lie, because my startup helps deaf communities. But in our team, our founding team, there was not a single deaf person. We just found that this problem is something that needs to be fixed. And true learning, because we were all still young, we never worked in a large corporates and stuff like that. True learning, we found the importance of diversity and inclusion, of ESG and all those stuff, of how important that is to a company or a government or something like that. And I really like to touch on how, for example, inclusion really helps for example, the summit or your company or whatever you have, because it's not just about profit, it's about being like somebody who really cares about other people, because at the end of the day, we're just people. So the initiatives of diversity and inclusion should be really something that the future should focus on. And not only that, it brings back profit. It's not charity, it actually brings back profit, and there's a lot of data to back it up. So that's my take.
Thanks for sharing. Other thoughts on the topic of either diversity, inclusion, or initiatives, things that need to happen?
It is difficult to comment, I mean, for everything what you said. Absolutely, we have to be aware, and we are aware, and we participate in many of different programs that empower women. Nevertheless, we have, I will give you one example. In my last project, where we were building a factory, and usually, factories are male-dominated somehow. We decided to split and say 50-50. So we are going to employ 50% male, 50% woman. And it was quite challenging because factories do work 3 shifts, and sometimes you have these issues of women not wanting to work on 3 shifts, but we have achieved. If it wasn't about that decision, most probably we would have had maybe only 10% women. But just because we decided and we said it's gonna be a pure 50-50 split, it happened. So I agree with you that sometimes we have to take such decision in order to empower and to include and actually reflect on the gender balance And I think we are on the right track, but it is important to have more women entrepreneurs for sure, because I agree that the number is small, but the potential is not small. So we have to find ways how to actually just support it.
I think that if I can add, just this one decision, as you mentioned, made a huge change. So I think this is how the change will happen in general. So if I can ask a big applause for Visar and his company, please, for this decision.
What are other thoughts and initiatives? So, diversity inclusion, we've agreed, got to happen. What else? How do we drive innovation and growth in this region? I'm gonna point to something obvious. I've been here for 24 hours, so if I say something wrong, forgive me, because I've been here for 24 hours. I hear there's a mass exodus of talent out of this country. When I went to the universities yesterday, the greatest dream of most of them is to come to Germany, where I live. And when I was DMing them on Instagram and TikTok, that's what they were talking about. How do we get to Germany? What do we have to do? What do we do about that? How do you retain talent? Because as far as I know, simple equation, if your talent leaves, innovation growth is not happening here. So what needs to change?
Definitely through successful stories. They need to see successful stories that people have achieved here, that made a change, made some kind of a success, made a good life, made some possibilities for themselves, for their family, and this is what what will make them stay here. But they need systematic support.
Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. Systematic support is definitely something that's the most important thing. I'm going to share a quick story from Serbia. So I went to this prestigious high school. Only like 100 people get in. There's like a special exam, whatever. And out of those 100 people from my generation, 50 of them left Serbia to go to whatever, US, Germany, they went to Cambridge or whatever you like. I don't like that. Especially because out of those 100, 7 work with me. So that's really something that is important to retain the talent, retain the best people in their own region, because they're the drivers of the innovation. And you need systematic support for that. Like Jovana said, you need to showcase that other people can make it. We have some successful startup stories in Serbia, and it's definitely something that inspired not just me and my team, my co-founders, whatever. It inspires all the people around, because recently I think that, and this is in my bubble, people have been starting to reconsider living in Serbia or in the region, whatever, and not leave to find happiness somewhere else. I think that's also super important. I would love to stay here in Serbia or in the region.
That's the keyword, happiness. In my opinion, you said role models, examples and so on and so on. Yeah, that's really great for motivating people to become entrepreneurs. But the startups and the companies are not built only by the entrepreneur. You need people who work and build the dream with you. And the thing here, for example, in Macedonia, the salary is not that huge problem why people are moving out. The thing is, they're moving regarding that word you mentioned, happiness. The system is not so good here, for example, the health system. If I start going, we are going to go in a whole different direction. But yeah, I think a lot of internal changes need to be done so we can have, that utopian dream you started speaking about.
Thanks for sharing those things. One other thought is knowing when to get out of the way. I think as someone who's also slowly moving into that age where I'm not the one starting everything, it's also knowing when to step out. So I get invited to talk about AI, but actually I have someone who is young, who is my AI person. And even though she is not the most confident speaker, I do better in my company training her, supporting her to be the face of that than for me, even though everyone's still asking for me to speak about it. And so knowing when to get out of the way, I think, is important. Because there are leaders here but maybe leaders who have been around for too long, and there are those who are change makers, but maybe they've been holding position for too long, and we need to change the game a little bit. So knowing when to get out of the way, I think, is also important. We've got a few more minutes, and I've got great questions from you all. So before we get to the closing ceremony, I want to honor our amazing audience with your questions. Question number 1. How does access to funding impact innovation and growth for startups and industry leaders? I think it's a pretty obvious answer, and the answer is?
A lot.
A lot? Yes? Would you say it's the number 1 thing?
No, I'd say the team is the number 1 thing.
Team's number 1?
Team is number 1, execution is second, third is funding.
All right, okay.
Market is number 0.
Market is number 0.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, we store them.
Yeah, solve a
Yeah.
problem that the market cares about. That's got to be the most important. Very cool. Question number 2. People are very interested about your companies. So the question is, tell us about your company. Why did you start it? And why will they be successful?
I didn't start Visa,
That's fine, yes.
so I'm skipping this one.
Okay, so we started it to, like, how it's operate. Our first product was basically a C# script, so we can execute rate marketing for a previous startup idea. The thing is, we weren't able to get success out of rate marketing, and everyone was telling me, no, you cannot utilize rate for marketing. But on the other hand, there are like 500 million monthly active users, beautifully segmented in 150,000 different communities, and someone out there is telling you, no, you cannot utilize this for marketing. And that's why we decided, okay, let's go a little bit guerrilla, scrape all of these people, DM them, and let's see how it goes. And yeah, we skyrocketed the previous idea and decided, okay, let's focus on doing this, and let's turn it into a product and see how it goes. So basically, we were scratching our own need. That was the beginnings of Howitzer.
Very cool.
Well, I started more than 10 companies till now, and 5 of them still are active in different fields. My first company was an IT company, so this coming from an engineer background, it was quite natural to go there. And the second company was totally different. So I went to did an MBA, and then I learned that people invest in different industries in order to diversify their portfolio, in order for the risk to be reduced so that their portfolio doesn't go down. And I said, why don't I do this, but totally by creating companies which are diversified? Because I'm not an investor, but I'm going to create companies which are going to be diversified in terms of the industries they work. So this is how I started a marketing company, and then another 2 production companies and so on. So it's totally different and almost none of it. But now they all kind of do invoice each other for the services. So it's also, with the scale, kind of, you are happy to have them as well in the portfolio. So the main reason, to go back to the question, it's you see an opportunity and you jump in it. You chew the idea for about 1 year, 2 years. You go through the whole aspects of making it happen, and then it just starts. This is how it happens.
Very cool.
Okay, in the end, me? Okay, so we founded Sign Avatar to help deaf communities have the same feelings as hearing people. So I'm just going to share a couple of things that many people don't know. People have been asking me them. So first up, there's not a universal sign language. There's many sign languages. For example, the American is different to the British one, and they both speak English. The second one is that it includes space. So I'm just going to make a quick example. So if you wanted to say the lamp is on a desk, the translation is not lamp on desk. You actually show a sign for a desk, then you put the desk in space, then you show a sign for a lamp, and then you put the lamp on the desk. So it has a visual component, 3D component. That's why we believe that AI helps to solve this. And the third thing is that people have been asking me, why not just make a bigger font they can just read? this. But the truth is, people who were born deaf, they speak sign language, not written or spoken language. So if you were, for example, to say something like a VC, you know what VCs are, there's not a sign for VC. You would have to say a person who gives you money to execute a startup or whatever. And that's why sometimes reading is really hard for them. Those are like common misconceptions. And why we founded this is because we believe that there's sign language everywhere where there's a speech. So our end goal is to actually have auto-generated sign language captions everywhere. For example, on YouTube, on Teams, and a really good example is this conference. This conference with Sign Avatar could have this screen here, could have an avatar for deaf people to enjoy the conference, hear the things that I can hear. That's it.
Very good. Well done. So even the examples that were presented just here from these fine gentlemen who've been building companies, this question is relevant to that. It says, it seems that all innovation today are in the realm of IT. Do the panelists believe that other sectors can also see radical changes and shifts? Yes. Yeah. Right? Anyone going to say no? No, okay, good. Absolutely. This is a great question. I hope it's a founder that's asking this, and they're saying, should founders ever start a company if their long-term goal is to be bought or acquired by a large existing company versus the goal of being a standalone company? Yeah. Acquisitions are great.
Acquisitions are great, especially, I'm going to say from my standpoint, if we want this to be on YouTube, I cannot just come into Google and say, okay guys, here's my software, it works. They have to buy my company. They're not going to, you get the idea. So acquisitions are great.
Any disagreement to that? No? Okay.
For this region, maybe yes.
For this region, maybe yes, okay.
Especially in the developing countries.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we see that as an opportunity of kind of, getting to one point where we will definitely benefit from a potential acquisition.
All right. We have just the last few minutes, and the newest question is wonderful, but it's going to require a bit of a risk from you guys. You ready for the risk?
Yep.
Here's the risk. Can each speaker give a 45-second enthusiastic speech on how young entrepreneurs, and I would say just future entrepreneurs, can succeed here despite the challenges? All right? So here's the risk, because it's the end. I want you, can we get this on? Thank you. I want you to come join me over here for 45 seconds. These are your last words before we close up our wonderful event here. So 45 seconds, you've got the audience's attention and people who are live streaming, watching as well. What would you say to future entrepreneurs? How do we excite them to innovate, to create, to grow? Who's coming first? Come on up, come on up. It doesn't have to be ladies first, it's whoever's ready first. Are you ready? I don't want to put you under pressure. You're under pressure. She's under pressure. Come on, come over here. Let's give her a hand. Over here, over here, over here. Okay, here we go. 45 seconds.
Who's measuring?
I am. This clock right there. Go for it.
Okay, so listen up. If you're an entrepreneur, you have idea, you're unstoppable. Yes. There is no one single reason why not to do it. If you have your idea, just think first step that you need to do to make your idea successful. You just need your idea. You need every day to think about your idea and each day to have one step forward to your idea.
Well done. Who's next? Come on. You can see the clock just like I can. Let's go. 45 seconds.
Okay, thanks everybody for having us. Okay, since I'm really young, I'm just gonna say to all the other young people, young entrepreneurs, the best thing to do is just start. Start your idea, iterate it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, try iterating again. But my advice is find the best team around you. Find people who make you laugh when you come to your job every day. And if you think that the only way to live is to work for somebody else, that's not true. You can do your own thing. You just have to believe in yourself. You just need to have a great team and a great idea and execution. So my advice would be to start.
Good job, man. Who's next? 45 seconds.
Thank you. I'm gonna start with our story. Like when we got funded, we were just 3 students, 22 years old, from university in Skopje, and we had a vision that we can change the whole marketing world. Trust me, nobody, and I mean nobody, trusted in what we were doing. Our professors, my parents, friends, everyone was telling us, you cannot do it. You're from Macedonia, you're 22 years old, you haven't even worked somewhere, you cannot, hire people and do the things. Even we weren't believing in ourselves at some times. But having a team, having a co-founder, and having someone you can rely on, and when you're down, he's cheering you up, like, yeah, we can do it. The guys from Apple started from a garage, Google guys started from there, you can do it. Like, what can we lose? Our money or time? We can always find a job, we can always do something. So if you really, really believe that you can do something, and if you really want to do it, just do it. You know that risky business scene when he's putting the wafers and saying, what the? Yeah, just that. Thank you.
Last one, 55 seconds on the clock.
It's all said almost, but I would say definitely passion. And if you are not passionate of what you're doing, try to find somehow the passion within. So for some people it might be money, for some other people it might be just employment, for some other people it might be something else, but you need to find that passion which will drive you throughout the whole thing, and just stick to it. You're gonna do it.
Persevere. Nice. In the last 20 seconds that we have on the panel, before I give it to Kirk, my 4 words are start now, start simple. This is why we do these things today. This is why we'll talk about it tomorrow. This is why we'll stay in touch the day after. It's one step in front of the other. Start now, start simple. Can we give it up one more time for our panelists? And to each of you, Kirk, come on up, man.